Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and this is Santosh sir. And as you know, the exams are approaching and will be starting the next month in December. And as usual, I will be there during your examinations. And I will be telling you from time to time how to prepare for the exams and what type of topics that you should prepare for the exams. And I am really very much thankful to all the viewers, the way you have supported my channel and to me. Thank you for your subscriptions and the confidence and the love with which you are watching my videos. That's amazing. It gives me a lot of satisfaction as well as confidence. So in this particular video, I'll be telling you how to prepare for MCO 03. Now one of the very tactical chapter. मजा आता है इसको करने में. Statistics के ऊपर है. And in this video, I will be also telling you about the June 2022. That means जो previous exams हुआ था, उसका solution, everything is included in this video. So do watch this video. Let's start the video, and this is what we are going to do. The subject name is Research Methodology and Statistical Analysis, MCO 03. And let's see, actually this is my study material, and from these study materials I am sharing you all the important topics unit wise. Now this is unit 1, and unit 1 is all about research methodology and statistical analysis. And always IGNOU targets the first chapter, and you are likely to get one question from unit 1 in every exams. So let's try to find out what are the important topics here. And as you can see here, that first we will start with business research. Okay, what is business research? Now business research is a process of systematic study of a problem and finding its solution. And systematic study means systematically or to follow a system to collect data, analyze them properly, and then you will present that data to the management. So like this, it is a systematic approach, and these are all methods of research. Basically I have written here 6 methods are there. The survey method, actually I have shared this in my previous videos also. Like the first method is survey method, second is observation method, third is case method, fourth experimental method, fifth historical method, and sixth comparative method. In survey method, the data are collected from a large number of people, and basically some samples are prepared from the population, and it is not possible to collect the information from each and every person, because in a country like India where there is a huge population, so you just cannot collect data from each and every individual. So you have to collect some samples through survey method. Okay. The next method is observation method. Now, as the name implies, observation means you will observe the respondent, right? Under this method, information is gathered by observing a particular event or a person, and it is a type of scientific inquiry. And basically, the interviewer or the researcher must be a very experienced and well qualified person. Otherwise, he will fail to observe others, right? And in case study, in the exams we get case studies, like a particular case will be given, and the researcher will try to study that case and find out the solution of the problem. So this method is quite very popular in cases of medical purpose, right? Okay. The next method is experimental method. As the name implies, here the researcher does an experiment, and basically again this method is applicable to scientific inventions and discoveries, where experiments are done and the conclusions are derived on concrete base. And in the fifth method is a historical method. Now as the name implies, historical, it is not from history. Actually it is from past observation. Like in a company, whatever we have collected in the past, whatever the data we have, So we will, the researcher tries to find out the solution from those past data and information. So that is why the name is historical method. Okay. And the last method is comparative method. Again, go with the name comparative. So here, information are gathered from sources and compared with the previous data. Basically, we do this in statistics, right? So here a comparison is made between the current information and the previous information. Okay. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next topic, and this is significance of business research, and or in other words, why we do business research. What is the importance of business research? So you can get, but friends, you will not get all direct questions. So you must, understand the question. Exams में questions directly नहीं आते, तो इस चीज़ का आप लोगों को ध्यान में रखना है, because you know the answer, but if you are unable to write, if you are unable to understand the question, so that's a big problem, right? So this is how the business research is important for a business. Like in production department, it plays a very important to find out the production methods, to invent new technology, and all these things should be done to improve the quality of the goods and to reduce the cost. Again, in marketing department, research again plays a very, very important role, because marketing is one of the most complex function of a business organization, and without a good research, it is very difficult to sell in the market and stand with the competition. So you must understand the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors. So these are all keywords that you should describe. And again, in finance department, research plays an important role, because business needs finance, credit. So it must understand what are the different sources from where it can gather cash. Okay, it must maintain a liquidity, the inflow and outflow of cash, pricing of the product, fund management. So all these are important things we generally find useful in business financial department. And when we talk about a human resource department, where the people are recruited, selected and trained, right? So in this department also research should be done, so that we get a good team of employees who can work with full potential, and their productivity should be 100%. And in case of purchase department or material department, again, the business needs to find out okay, what are the different sources from where it can procure raw materials, right? So like that. Now the next topic is what are the criteria or essentials of a good research. Okay, while we are doing a research, what things we should consider. First, objective. It should have a particular objective, it should not be a useless research. Then it should be systematic, because I just now told you about this, that research is a systematic process, and every research should have a proper design, right? And sufficient data should be collected so that that can be analyzed and interpreted. It should not be, due to lack of data, the research will be void. It should be logical. That means, there should be a logic behind something, a true problem should have a solution, right? And it should not be impractical, and it should be dynamic, flexible. The research should change with the change in time and place. It should be simple to understand, right? It should be economical, that means less expensive or within the budgets of the enterprise. And lastly, timeliness, that means it should be completed within the particular period of time. Okay, the next important question is, what are the problems and difficulties faced by the researcher while doing the research? Right, this is also a very common question, generally strikes in the exams. And basically this question is it is on India, in fact. Okay, and like let's see, like what are the different type of problems faced by the researcher. And basically in India, the researchers are not well qualified and trained, And many business houses, they consider research as a useless activity, and that's why they do not take keen interest in doing research. And there are a lot of organizations, due to lack of finance, they do not conduct research. And most of the people in India depend on customs and traditions rather than new research. So this is again a big problem. And again, like most of the business organizations or the sources of data, they do not share the true information about the problem. So this is again a big problem. Then there are not good library facilities in India where researcher can get adequate data and information. And information by the government organizations, they are not available timely. So this creates a problem in collecting data. Then there is no code of conduct for researchers. They are, they conduct research in systematic way. So these are few problems that are faced in India while doing research. Okay, let's move on to unit 2, and this is on research plan. And your topic starts with research problem. And friends, without a problem, research cannot be done. If we don't have any problems, we are all satisfied, then there is no need to conduct research. So every research starts with a problem, by perceiving a problem. Okay, as far as the problem is there, we need to find the solution of the problem, and for that we need research. Now, what are the different characteristics or features of a good research problem? Now, I have written here 7 characteristics. The first one is the purpose of the research should be well defined. It must be objective. The second one is the research must be relevant to the management. That means it should be useful to the management. The third is it should be interesting to the researchers, because if the researcher is not interested, then he will not take much initiative and interest in the research. The fourth one is the research must have abilities and expertise to find the solution of the problem. The fifth one is availability of data. The information required to do the research should be easily available to the researcher, otherwise he cannot do research. Sixth one is accessibility of data. That means information and data should be within the reach of the researcher, and it should not be beyond the researcher. It should be accessible. And availability of resources, that means sufficient resources must be there to conduct research. The next topic is sources or the different types of research problems. Now this is again a very common question actually. Okay, what are the different types of problems for which business enterprise do research? Firstly, there are a lot of business problems for which researchers do research. Then day-to-day problems are there with the common people. Then there are some problems with technology, and always in technology research is always done, right? Otherwise we will not be able to get the new technology. Then there are some unexplored area where the human beings always wants to know something new about the unexplored areas. So research is continuously being done over there. Then a researcher's interest, it should match the interest of the researchers. And books, thesis, articles, reports, so all these things also they are a part of research. And lastly, policy problems, because whenever the company frames policies, it needs to do research beforehand. So all these things, all these points you can describe, very easy points, right? The next topic is points to be considered while selecting a problem, or how to select a research problem. So what topics, what problems, what are the considerations that a researcher must consider before doing a research? The first one is the topic. The topic selected should be original and less explored. Then only the researcher feel interested in investigating into the problem. The second one is it should be useful and significant to the business enterprise. It must be socially desirable. It should not be an antisocial act, and it should be interesting to the researchers. Then it should match with the researcher's specialization, his expertise, and it should be big enough to be researchable and small enough to be handled. So the problem should be a balanced one. It should have a particular objective. It should be completed within the time frames, and it should be cost effective. That means, you know, extravagance expenses should not be done while doing research. Okay. The next topic is a very interesting and very important topic. Always strikes in the exams. Hypothesis. Now, what is hypothesis? Most of the students they are confused about its meaning, but its meaning is very simple. It is just a tentative solution of a research problem. In other words, these are the suggested solutions of a problem. Like, for example, what I am doing with you is a hypothesis that we are in hypothesis, we are considering few topics which may strike in the exam. So, this is nothing but hypothesis. Okay. Now, let's see the different types of hypothesis. These are six types of hypothesis generally we do. The first one is explanatory hypothesis, second one is descriptive, third one is analogical, fourth one working hypothesis, fifth one null hypothesis, and sixth one statistical hypothesis. So one by one we will explain this. Now in explanatory hypothesis, as the name implies, it explains the problem, right? In descriptive, the problem has a cause and effect relationship with the phenomena or problem. In analogical, we formulate a hypothesis on the basis of similarities or analogy of the event. In working hypothesis, now this one is very important. Working and null, both are very, very important and generally strikes in the exams. And okay, working hypothesis, that means hypothesis formulated for the purpose of further investigation is called a working hypothesis, and it is a starting point of the process of investigation. And in null hypothesis, it is basically widely used in sampling of data, and a null hypothesis may be accepted or rejected. So there is a 50-50 chance of this. And statistical hypothesis we generally use in statistics. So these are the six types of hypothesis that we use. Now this particular question came in June 2022 examinations. What are the criteria and conditions for good hypothesis? Now friends, I will not say that you should not go through this question. It may strike, but less chances of strike. So in June, whatever the questions that you have, I have written in my study material that the questions will strike in the previous exams. Okay, so let's ignore this and move on to the next topic. Okay, the uses of hypothesis. Why hypothesis is done? What is the importance? Basically, it is the starting point where the research work starts. It helps to find the direction of research. Now, this is very important, that without hypothesis, a proper and systematic research cannot be conducted. So it shows the direction, like in which direction the research should be conducted. Then it helps to select and collect the data. It helps in explaining the problem. It helps in drawing the conclusion of the problem, and it works as a basis for future knowledge. So friends, this hypothesis is very, very important in research. The next topic is also a very important topic, very common topic, and this is research design. Now this question also came in June 2022 exams, and on research design there were a lot of questions. This question, like the next topic, components and contents of the research design. Now this question also came in June 2022 exams. So let's just brief it about it. Okay, and research design is nothing but it is a logical and systematic planning and directing of a piece of research. It is a plan or strategy of investigation so as to find the solution of the problem. Okay, and basically these are all the functions. I have written here 4 functions of research design. As like designing of clothes or designing of the room. So the research has also a particular design which can be adopted by the researcher. And the main components of research design, like defining the problem, what is the problem all about? So define the problem properly, find the main object of the research, then plan your research, then form a hypothesis, the direction, a tentative solution of the problem, then what are the available sources of data from where information can be gathered, then how will you collect the data, that is methods of collection, then you need to analyze the data whether like they are true, false, or like that, then presentation of data to the management, and complete the research in time and take care of the expenses incurred on the research. So these are the main components of research design. The next unit is collection of data, a very important chapter. You must pay 100% attention to this particular unit, unit 3. And basically there are two types of data. One is primary data and secondary data. And primary data is the data that is collected for the first time through personal experience or evidence. And it is also known as first-hand information, right? And the investigator supervises and controls the data personally or directly. And the main data is collected through these things like observations, physical testing, mailed questionnaires, surveys, personal interviews, telephonic interviews, case studies. So these are the different sources of primary data. And in secondary data, they are, as you know, that's second-hand data. These are also termed as second-hand data that is already collected and recorded by some researcher. And again, the researcher observes this data to find the solution. Now, I have written a difference between primary and secondary data in this table, as you can see here, that this is primary data, secondary data, and I have written all these points in a very simple language. You just you can read and understand that the topics are so simple. Okay, the next question also came in June 2022 examination. There were lot of questions that strike from my study materials in June 2022, and this is methods of collecting primary data. And basically we use 5 methods: observation method, interview method, then reports, questionnaire, and schedule. And again, like on questionnaire, again you get one separate question on short notes in June 2022. So I have also explained this in my previous videos about all these methods of primary data, their merits and demerits. So you must prepare these questions well. You might get in short notes, if not in the long questions. Like in observation method, the researcher collect data by observing the activities of the observant, okay, or the participants, and these are all merits and demerits. In interview, like one-to-one interview is conducted to collect data from the people. And a company can also appoint reporters or correspondents to collect data from different areas. And basically this method is more used by all these newspaper, magazines, radio, and TV news channels. And again, all these methods have their merits and demerits. In questionnaire, a list of questions is sent to the informant requesting them to answer the questions. And these questions are maybe sent by post or mail, or even like personally you can send them. And again, this method have merits and demerits. Schedule is the last type of method, and here again it is a type of questionnaire, just an advanced technique of that. And again, here also like few questions are asked to the respondents. And especially here, the main difference between questionnaire and schedule is that enumerators are appointed here, so they collect data on behalf of the researcher. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. This topic did not strike in June 2022, so you might expect this topic to come in the exams. Sources of collecting secondary data. Now there are 3 sources: published sources, unpublished sources, and electronic sources. As you know, published sources, These are all public sources like newspapers, magazines, bulletins, reports. So all these are published, like whatever being published in the in these papers. So they are one of the sources. And unpublished, this type of data is collected from research institutions, trade associations, universities, and private institutions, which are not yet published. And the last is electronic sources, that is internet. Now this is one of the most important source of collecting data, and we can use all these google.com, yahoo.com, all these sites from where we can collect a lot of secondary data. Okay. The next unit is unit 4, sampling. Again a very important topic, sampling. Now let's try to find out what is sampling. Sampling is a process of collecting data from the samples chosen, and generally it is possible for a researcher to collect data from each and every unit of the population, and therefore it divides the whole population into small segments और कॉल्ड सैम्पल्स. ठीक है, पूरी की पूरी पॉपुलेशन से हम लोग डेटा कलेक्ट नहीं कर सकते, तो एक वहाँ से सैंपल कलेक्ट करना होता है, एंड उनसे फिर हम लोग इंफॉर्मेशन या डेटा कलेक्ट करते हैं. एंड दिस इज अगेन द डिफरेंस बिटवीन सेंसस एंड सैम्पलिंग. नाउ ये चीज़ आपको ज़्यादा अच्छे से समझ में आएगी बाय दिस डायग्राम, जो आपको it will make your concept crystal clear. Now this is census. Census is a the whole population of India is a census, and when we are considering a part of this population, that becomes a sample. So census is a broad concept, sample is a very narrow concept, and for research purpose we generally use samples. Okay. The next topic also came in June 2022 exams, method of sampling. Okay, so this method of sampling, again there are two methods, random sampling and non-random sampling. And in random sampling, as the name implies, random means कहीं से भी कोई भी data या samples collect करना. It is a technique of sampling. Each unit of the population has an equal chance of being chosen as a sample. And this technique of sampling, in non-random sampling, the samples are selected on the basis of certain factors like convenience, judgment, and experience of the researcher. Random sampling is based on probability of events, while non-random sampling depends on some specific factors. And random sampling represents the entire population, but non-random sampling generally represents a part of the population. Random sampling is a very simple technique of sampling, whereas non-random is a very complex process of sampling. Now, random sampling again can be divided into 5 types. That is simple random sampling. The second one is systematic sampling. Third one, stratified random sampling. Fourth one, cluster sampling. And fifth one, multi-stage sampling. Now, one by one we can discuss this. In simple random sampling, it is one of the most popular method of choosing samples among the population from a wide variety of purposes. In simple random sampling, each member of population is equally likely to be chosen as a part of sample, and all the members of the population are given an equal chance to be chosen. But each unit of the population is selected randomly. So this is one key sentence here. As you can see here in the figure, that this is the total population, and out of this we have randomly selected 4 persons. Like, okay, here from one person here, and this is the second person, and here this person is selected, and again this person. So randomly you have to select any person from the population. There are few advantages and disadvantages of simple random sampling. Advantages, as the name implies, it is one of the simplest method and very popular method, and it is easy to select samples of a large population by this method, and it doesn't require any technical knowledge or very expert knowledge of the researcher, and this method is quite economical, like one of the cheapest method. And disadvantage is like it is very time consuming for large studies and expensive also. Okay, and it is not suitable for large sample size where the sample size is large. The method looks easy in theory, but it is very difficult for practice. And this method is not suitable for studies that involve face-to-face interview. So, like this, there are some advantages and disadvantages. The next one is the second sampling. Now, this one, systematic sampling. Now, this question also came in June 2022 exams. I have also explained this in my previous videos, so you must also watch those. And let's skip this question and let's move on to stratified random sampling. Now this is also like in the previous years questions, you might have seen this question also, stratified random sampling. Now what is this? In stratified sampling, we divide the population into relatively homogeneous groups called strata, and then we select a sample from each strata using simple random sampling method. And this method is used when the population is heterogeneous. That means अलग अलग टाइप के लोग अलग अलग जगह पे रह रहे हैं, तो दैट मेक्स द पॉपुलेशन हेट्रोजीनियस. तो हेट्रोजीनियस पॉपुलेशन के लिए ये सैम्पलिंग वन ऑफ द बेस्ट. एंड ये फिगर से आपको बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आ जाएगा. लाइक हियर द पॉपुलेशन इज डिवाइडेड इनटू strata. Strata means groups. You can see here that this is the first group, and again this is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth group. So there are four groups, right? And from here these two groups are selected, right? So one from here, one from the second group, one from the third group, and one from the fourth group. So like this. And it is also, this method is also known as disproportional stratified sample. Again, there are some advantages and disadvantages of this method. This method is more accurate as it reflects all the characteristics of the population. It is more precise and practical. It saves time, money and resources. And there are few limitations also. What are those? It requires detailed knowledge and characteristic of the population. It is difficult to prepare the stratified list. This method is expensive as it requires the service of an expert researcher. The next sampling method is cluster sampling. And cluster sampling is a technique in which the clusters of participants representing the population are identified and included in the sample. The whole population is divided into clusters on the basis of districts, towns, cities, etc. And then one person is selected from each as a sample, right? And this method of conducting research is very popular in marketing department. And let's see from the diagram. Now this is the whole population, and the population is divided into different clusters. There are 6 clusters here. This is first, this is second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And out of these clusters, 2 clusters are selected randomly. So this is how you have to define, you have to write about cluster sampling. Again, it has advantages and disadvantages. Okay. The next sampling method is multi-stage sampling. Now in multi-stage, it is one of the complex method. It is a combination of all the above methods of sampling. Sampling is done in various stages and therefore it is known as multi-stage sampling. The whole population is divided into clusters and each cluster into groups and subgroups. Then each unit is selected randomly. Like for example, to gather information on MCOM students studying in different colleges all over India, we can use this method quite effectively. So here multi-stage, different stages are formed to collect samples. Like I have given the example of MCOM students. So from different colleges we can collect one sample each of the MCOM students for research purpose. So like this. There are some non-random sampling methods also. And from here also in June 2022, we get a question on convenience sampling. So this question strike in short notes. And basically there are three methods of non-random sampling: convenience, judgment, and quota sampling. Now, as the name implies, convenience, that means the data or the samples which are most conveniently available to the researcher, so that is called convenience sampling. Information is easily available to the researcher from nearby sources, and these are best used for exploration research where we need to explore a thing. And it is quite useful in testing the questionnaire designed on a pilot basis, and it's widely used in the marketing department. And in judgment sampling, basically it requires the judgment of the researcher. That means the researcher must be a very trained, experienced, and well qualified person. And there may be different researchers, their opinions of experts. Now this is the key word that you have to use. The opinions of experts are taken, and from them, like, the data is collected. In quota sampling, this is again a very popular method in marketing research, and samples are collected on the basis of some parameters like age, sex, geographic region, education, income, like that. And basically a type of quota is allotted to the researcher. I have given one example here for your better concept clearing. To know about the diets of the population, we can divide the population into vegetarians and non-vegetarians, and thus we will be having two quotas allotted to the researcher for research. Okay. The next topic is sampling errors. Again, a very important topic. While choosing samples, often researchers does some type of mistakes. And a sampling error is a statistical error that occurs when an analyst does not select a sample correctly that represents the entire population of the data. And as a result, the results found in the samples are not correct and up to the mark. Okay, so these are called sampling errors. And sampling errors can be divided into two types. One is sampling errors, the other is non-sampling errors. Now let's try to understand what are these all about. Sampling errors are this, like, the main sources of these sampling errors are the sampling method, sample size, research design, like that. And non-sampling errors, the main sources of non-sampling errors are research design and mistakes in doing the research. And again, we can divide non-sampling errors into two types. One is respondent errors, the other is administrative errors. So again, respondent error, as the name implies, respondent means जिससे इंटरव्यू ले रहे हैं, जिससे डाटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं, if he provides a wrong information, false information, so that makes a problem. And in administrative errors, again, like, it is the problem with the whole system of the research, right? So this is how you have to expand your answers. Make sure that your concepts are clear. Okay. The next topic is how can we reduce the errors, sampling or non-sampling errors. I have written here 5 methods. First, by proper designing and executing a good questionnaire, by choosing the most suitable and appropriate sampling method, by taking adequate sample size, by employing trained and competent researchers to collect data, and by taking proper care during editing, coding, and entering the data into the computer. So like this was a little bit longer unit. And friends, in the next video I will be explaining this unit 5, measurement and scaling techniques. And that's all for the day. And prepare your lessons well. A very best of luck for the forthcoming exams. And those who wish to buy my study material, they can message me on my Telegram channel. And a very best of luck. Thank you very much for watching my video.